welcome to FrightFest.
Thank
Great to have you on, and finally to meet you after what's been almost a 2-year effort to get the film into the festival.
It has, hasn't it? It's been quite an emotional ride for us both, I think. You know, going from 2020 through to 2021 where we're at now. It feels quite surreal, but great to be in the mix.
Well, as you know, I've said what I've said about your film. It's one of the most assured first-time debuts I've ever seen.
Thank you.
And you don't have you have a filmmaking background, but you have a bit of a history.
Yeah, I've got an eclectic background. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, so let's
very mixed.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Leroy Kincaide for the viewers. I'm a director who also writes, but in my past life I was an undertaker, professional wrestler, and occasionally I do acting, but not too often. But it's more like, you know, now the filmmaking is the be all and end all that I'm up to. Okay,
now a little non-spoilerly bit about the film. What's it about, but without giving away any spoilers?
So if anybody's going to watch Last Rite and expect to see a certain type of film, the way I would look at it is like if you look at a film like The Exorcist, Exorcism of Emily Rose, Amityville Horror, you're going to pretty much find a rough sort of space where The Last Rite will sit. So without giving away any of the story, but one of the things that like really sort of made me want to tell this story was just my love for supernatural horror films that sit a little bit more in a story sense, where it's not just about jump scares, it's not just about contrived situations, it's like looking at somebody who is dealing with something and how do they manage that in their day-to-day life.
The film is a very particular pace.
Yep.
It takes its time, sets everything up, and you get the payoff at the end. And that's obviously a deliberate thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to sort of sit a little bit more with the characters and the dark and foreboding atmosphere that lives with them after the fact. So in the story, I think what's really important is that, you know, if you look at like life, everybody has a day before their day, right? So you've had a day before I see you today and vice versa with me. So it's like our days don't usually mix with one another. But what I looked at from a story premise for The Last Rite is actually like once certain things start to happen, how is other people's lives either changed or affected after the fact of becoming aware of said information. So I tried to sort of like engage a pace that fit very much so around that, as well as like the dark things that are happening. So it's not just about, as I say, horror situation after horror situation. Because, you know, stories like that, I just find they don't really tend to go anywhere. You know, you're not left with a lasting impression.
Yeah.
You know?
Understand perfectly. So your cast, talk about your cast. Well, we know who you decided on, but why?
Well, we cast, when did we cast? I think it was like early 2019 when we first started casting for the film. Bethan, who plays our lead actress, absolutely dynamite of a find. Like she was just impeccable, as was all of the cast. But I knew that the character that the actress who needs to bring to life Lucy, who's the protagonist of the film, this actress needed to have a dynamic that probably not a lot of people will be comfortable in diving into. So when you look at, like, obviously you're playing an exorcism movie, right? Okay, great, yeah, you got to be possessed, okay. But it wasn't just about someone playing as somebody who was possessed. It was about somebody that would be willing to give the role what it needed. And I never forget, like on our audition day, you know, we saw a lot of talented actresses. But I remember the impression that I first got off of Bethan when she come in. And she literally, like, you know, she didn't say too much. She was quite placid-natured individual. So she's just stood like over at the side, and she starts doing all these stretching and stuff like that. And I thought, I relate to somebody who's taking their craft that serious, that they're stretching before the actual audition. And I was like, she's going to be the one. Yeah. I said that to myself, and then literally, as soon as I saw what she did, she had the role. Johnny, who plays the boyfriend, he was phenomenal. He was really good as well. And Kit, who plays Father Roberts in the movie, he's like the knight in shining armour, shall we say. His role was also very specific. I was very specific about two particular roles. One was Lucy, who's the protagonist, and the other one was the priest, Father Roberts, because there's a sense of storytelling that I really wanted to stay true to with the priest, because it wasn't just about trying to get a church involved for the sake of it. It was like, actually, like, this character really cares, but why does he care? And how I could engage with his story and his life and make it relevant to play out in Lucy's world as well. So no, it was really interesting time finding the cast, but really pleased that we got such a
interesting what you say about the priest who cares. It's what a lot of people forget when they make horror films. I think it should be full of nasty people that nasty things happen to, but you still got to be able to root for somebody and care what's going on.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at, like, a circle of life is not complete without having yin to yang or vice versa. You know, you need light and dark. They're both very relevant in story. But one of the key things, which is, I believe it's more of a grounding force of the actual story itself, is one of the main themes that run throughout the entire movie is the priest's theme. And that was the tyranny of evil triumphs when good people stand by and do nothing. No. And for me, this is very relevant because it sort of lived itself through and in the priest's life in the story, even though he's not in every aspect of it. There's part of this little thing that he questions in his own life, where a lot of his moral compass is challenged, because a lot of the time, if you look at, like, you know, the world's eclectic, it's mixed with different people. We all have to do a good decision for ourselves, but sometimes the outcome might be bad for other people, or vice versa. But it's like, it's at that point in time when is the right thing then the wrong thing, or for the wrong thing to actually be the right thing. Yeah. So I made sure that was a perspective that I took in the story, because I thought it's not just about horror situations, even though it's a horror film. It's a film that I wanted to stay true to some sense of the word that challenged someone who had to do the right thing, because I think that's a relatable thing for a lot of people.
So the film's got distribution?
Yeah, so we've got distribution currently in the States and a couple of other territories we've got. We're still looking to secure something for the UK, so at the moment we don't have a UK distributor just yet. But fingers crossed that will change after FrightFest. I'm sure it will.
I assure you that probably will.
Yeah.
And moving on, the final question to wrap these things up is, what's next?
So what's next is I've been heavily in the mix of currently scripting two feature projects. One's a bit like Aliens meets 28 Days Later. It's quite dark. That one's called Facility 7. That's going to be, if we look at that like my Hollywood higher budget movie, that's the one that I'm looking at doing with that. And the next one, which is looking like it's going to be the most likely film that we're going to probably do next, is called Hollow Ones. That one's a bit like, it's home invasion, it's a bit like Strangers, bit of I Spit in Your Grave sort of vibe there. Very, very dark, very aggressive, and a very angry movie, that one. That one's probably, it's probably going to challenge a lot of people's perspectives when they watch it. But, if you don't go out to stand out, you just blend in with everyone else. So it's about going hard for the next one.
Okay, interesting. I look forward to seeing that.
Thank you very much. And we will definitely be aiming to FrightFest, Habit, anyone that we've got coming up next. I love you guys. I think you guys are phenomenal. And I just can't, actually, I want to thank you as well, for what you and the team do for not just the filmmakers, but the community, for horror lovers. I think, nobody can sing your praises enough. I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job. And to be back in the UK, you're like the first festival that's physically live in the UK. that's just fucking awesome. Like, so, you know, you guys are doing a great job. So
well,
it would be an honour to become.
And as it is to include your film, and I hope you go on to great success and make many more.
No, thank you very much.